for listening to Uncle Sam's Soccer Podcast, keeping you up to date with the latest in American soccer. And don't forget to subscribe.
Welcome to 2018 Uncle Sam's Soccer Podcast, Armand. And boy, do we have a special announcement. Well, actually, we have two.
We have a special interview and then a nice announcement.
And an announcement. First, the announcement. We're adding a new member to the Uncle Sam Soccer Podcast team.
A new member.
New member, Jake Watroba, out in Minnesota. So now you got 3 areas of the United States covered. Up here in Wisconsin, down in Dallas. I guess Dallas is an area, not necessarily a state. But now Minnesota. So we're hoping to bring you some more Minnesota contact. We're so excited to have Jake on board. He loves the sport. Truly a fan. You can follow him at Twitter at Jake Watroba. Jakewa.
We'll put it in the description.
Troba. Might as well finish the name now.
Oh my gosh.
But a special interview, Armand, and it is Steve Gans.
Well, yeah, first off with Jake, glad to have him on. He's already been giving us great ideas, so we're a pleasure to be with you, pleasure to work with you. And yeah, Steve Gans, man, it's a fascinating interview.
We talk about all the different aspects, and we spend a good chunk on youth development because that seems to be a big part of his platform.
But he made sure, and he clarified, that's not the only part of his platform, but he does look at the overall game as lacking in terms of certain areas. And remember, hey, let's not get this twisted. Gans wanted to run even before this
the debacle.
The debacle, yeah. He wanted to run before.
And he's been, sorry to interrupt, but he's been asked to run for some time.
So, I mean, think about it. This guy has been asked to run all this time. He ends up announcing his running in May-ish before anyone else. So, I mean, you could tell he's very dedicated to the game, and he talks about when he used to watch the NASL, which we can't forget about. I think that's one thing we can't forget about. He talks about all these issues regarding the DA, regarding high school soccer, college soccer. We bounce with the NASL and the potential of having an open pyramid. Talk about women's game as well. I think we talk about almost everything.
No, we do. And it's a fantastic insight into one of the 8 candidates. And in a situation and in time where it seems almost and virtually impossible to separate a lot of those candidates and their ideas apart. Because a lot of it is just tweeting. And we often know tweeting doesn't necessarily reflect the real opinion, and nor does
it reflects my real opinion.
Well, okay. Besides for Armand's, it doesn't necessarily reflect the opinion of the general public or reflect, the message. And often words can be misunderstood. So it's when you can get somebody one-on-one to get them to open up about their platform, especially in any election type process.
It's enlightening.
It's very enlightening. Well, listeners, joining us right now is Steve Gans. He's been involved with soccer since the 70s. He's represented with his law firm the professional youth level soccer clubs in the U.S. and England. He, in fact, played college soccer at Cornell and Brandeis, played in the youth system for the New England T-Men. He helped bring the World Cup to Boston. He is running for USFF president. How's it going, Steve Gans?
It's going fine. Thanks for doing that deep research. With me, you have to do deep research, so I appreciate that.
Well, you got
a
quite
pleasure to be here, guys.
Oh, thank you so much. But you got quite of a history with the sport.
Yeah, I do. I like to think that in my own somewhat non-flamboyant way, it's deeper than really any other candidate, because what I like to say, I've done everything in the sport. other than be a professional referee. So I think I get just about every, and that's true, and I get every perspective from player to management to executive to parent to club board member to Premier League executive to, again, and frustrated parent who needs advice, which I do pro bono all the time, to parents confused by the youth system. And so, I think I get all those perspectives and have been fortunate to spend really my whole life in the game since my dad exposed me to it.
And yeah, on the talk of your dad, you said that your dad he came from Germany and played a big role in you loving soccer and introducing you to the game. So what about soccer do you love so much?
Well, it's an interesting question. I mean, notwithstanding the fact that he exposed me to it, he took me to games every weekend, and in those days you'd see big international games. They weren't on TV. They were, we're talking about the early 70s and mid 70s. They were piped into ballrooms at hotels, and so I was inspired by the game, but I really played baseball more because there wasn't that much soccer around. And then when I saw in person a really good game, it was a North American Soccer League game in the 70s. A team came to town here in Boston. A light switch went off. And what do I love about it? I think it's what everybody loves about it. It's the international language. It's to this day, my career, I ended up having, my statistics are more impressive for surgeries and broken legs. They're bigger numbers than the goals and assists I had in the pros. But, and one time I was operated on, a doctor said, the way your hips are built, you should have stayed playing baseball. But I don't regret it at all because, to me, one of the most exciting things, whether you're playing formally and pro, whatever it is, or you're playing pickup, the fact that you can go out to a field and play a pickup game, and there might be people speaking 4 or 5, 6 languages, different ethnicities, and some may not speak the same language as you, English in my case, but you all can communicate through the beautiful game. It really is the international language, and there's that part of it which to me to this day is thrilling and always excited me and opened a world to me. And then the other part is just it's just the greatest sport. It's the hardest sport. They call it the simplest game because all you need is a ball, but it's really, to me, the most complex game because it's free-flowing in a huge, large field, and vision and decision-making you have to make is so difficult, and mastering all the skills. And so when you see them do it at a very high level, it's just extraordinary. So I think those are common themes that other people have, but that's what kind of inspired me. And once I did that, and I still love baseball. It's second to me, but it's a distant second to soccer.
I'm assuming you call the Boston sports teams your favorite.
I think that's largely true. I think for me, definitely the Red Sox and the Celtics are the two major of the traditional, 4 sports that most people grew up with here. I think the Red Sox are. I look at, there's a lot of pride when you're from Boston. You look like what's the deepest ingrained in the culture here, and certainly the Red Sox and the Celtics. I happen to love the Bruins growing up because I grew up in the Bobby Orr era, and if you grew up in when Bobby Orr was a player here, then you're kind of inspired by that. But to me, love all the Boston teams, but foremost Red Sox and Celtics.
It's funny because I was born in Beverly, so my parents are also my parents are immigrants, so Boston was their American hometown. I was born there, so I love the Boston sports team. So I had to ask you.
That's great. Where are they from?
Switzerland.
Oh, very cool.
So,
and where are you based now?
Well, right now my parents are in Milwaukee, and I'm studying at Madison, but we've moved around the country quite a bit. But for us, Boston is our American hometown, no doubt about it.
Right, got it.
But let me
great.
Yeah, let me ask you, culturally, economically, and overall, the growth of the sport has tremendously changed since your youth, and especially in the last 20 years. Do you like the direction we're going with the sport here in America?
No, I certainly don't like the direction we're going in overall. I would say that, and this is certainly not blowing smoke because, I first announced my presumptive candidacy in May, and all the other candidates who I respect, each one of them, but they all jumped in after the U.S. lost in October. And, I was talking about problems well before the U.S. lost. And the U.S. lost, that was not a moment frozen in time. That was a manifestation of the things I was talking about. And no, I'm not happy with the way youth soccer is going. I think there's a lot of fractiousness. I think there's a lot of confusion. I think there's a lot of needless competition among sanctioning organizations that's holding the game back. I think there are attrition issues, alarming attrition issues with youth players. I think all the way up to the Development Academy. I was on the board of the Development Academy team. I'm a parent of 2 Development Academy players. I think it's very dysfunctional and needs to be fixed. So I think there are problems there. And obviously, at least on the men's national team side and player development side, we're not in good shape. We have an inverse relationship. We have an organization that's got the largest surplus it's ever had, and yet it just had its worst result it's ever had. So I think a lot of things do need to change. Now that said, obviously, and I've met tons of people. I've been doing this since May. There are great people involved in this sport, and most of them are volunteers. They all need to be respected, and I've gotten some great ideas from many of them. And I think what I am excited about is there's a higher level of competency in the sport than there used to be. But a lot of those people are voting delegates, and they're not getting a fair shake from U.S. Soccer. I think that there really needs to be change, and that was kind of my theme from the beginning. It's time for change, and we're certainly going to get change because the incumbent is not running. The question is it going to be good change, or is it going to be maybe not as good as it could be? So it's definitely time for change. We need to improve things, and I think I'm the one to do it.
So you talked about the youth development, and many people point to youth development as a huge issue in terms of for the United States. And many people have countered with the argument of the young players in the system right now that are going off to Europe and are playing pretty well. So your main thing is mainly just the youth development as a key issue. Is that correct?
No, that's not my main. That's not my main thing. I mean, no. This is, by the way, this is a nonprofit organization, and so by its definition, it has to stay close to its original mission and purpose as it was formed. In the Articles of Organization 100 years ago, and that mission and purpose is not only about creating national team players. That's part of what U.S. Soccer does, but it's creating playing and healthy athletic opportunities for kids and adults and that sort of thing. And so, no, I'm not just concerned about the development of players at the end of the funnel. I'm concerned about what's happening to kids at U7, U8, U9. Why are kids leaving the sport alarmingly between U6 and U12? Why is 75% leaving at U13? So I'm concerned about all of the youth stuff. I'm concerned about the fact that the Federation has not gotten involved with looking beneath that top line of registration numbers and solve the infighting between the sanctioning organizations that fight for the same players, leagues, and clubs to the ultimate confusion. When you have parents calling you and saying, what is the NEP? What is the NPL? What is the ECNL? What is the DA? What is this league, what is that league, and why are there 2 state cups in my state? I don't get it. Those are a function of sanctioning organizations not getting along and competing, and the confusion is hurting both the enjoyment of kids who aren't necessarily going to be national team players, and also the development of players who could. And one thing I will say is those players at the end of that funnel. And again, my older son is a very successful college player now, but he and a lot of teammates, I see this, they're going through the Development Academy right now creates a lot of technically good players, but they play without joy. And we got to fix that as well. We have some guy like Messi that goes through the biggest academy in the world, most serious academy, and he comes